Most people think Nietzsche was an arrogant, bitter man who hated religion, loved Hitler, and eventually lost his mind. Most people are wrong, and here's what's strange. Nietzsche predicted that most people would misunderstand him. He literally wrote that into his books. He said his ideas would only be understood after his death. So today, we're going to do something unusual. We're going to read Nietzsche the way he actually meant to be read. Not through the lens of his sister's propaganda, not through edgy internet quotes, and not through a Reddit thread. We're going to read him like a man who was in agony, because that's exactly what he was. And by the end of this video, I promise you, the phrase "God is dead" is going to hit you completely differently. Friedrich Nietzsche was born in 1844 in Prussia when he's 5 years old. His father, a Lutheran pastor, the man who was supposed to be the pillar of the household, gets sick mysteriously, rapidly, and dies. Then, within a year, his younger brother dies too. 2 deaths, before he's 6 years old. Now imagine growing up in a household that worships a God who supposedly protects the innocent, and watching that God do absolutely nothing while your family collapses. That experience never left him. It haunted him, and it became the philosophical wound that he spent his entire life trying to understand. Because here's the tension Nietzsche lived inside. He was raised in deep Christian faith. His mother was devout. He studied theology. He was supposed to become a man of the cloth, but his mind wouldn't let him. By his mid-20s, he had abandoned theology completely, pivoted to classical philology. It's the study of ancient language and literature, and became the youngest professor ever hired at the University of Basel. He was brilliant, prodigiously so. But brilliance doesn't protect you from life. Throughout his 30s and 40s, Nietzsche was sick, chronically sick. Migraines so severe he'd spend days in darkness, digestive illness, eye problems that made reading nearly impossible. He would wander between boarding houses in Switzerland, Italy, France, chasing climates that might ease his pain. And here's what I find remarkable. This man, alone, sick, rejected, because his books barely sold during his lifetime, this man produced some of the most radical and important philosophy in human history. Thus spoke Zarathustra, beyond good and evil, the birth of tragedy. He wasn't writing from comfort. He was writing from the edge. Idea 1, the death of God. When Nietzsche wrote "God is dead," he wasn't celebrating. He wasn't taunting believers. He was terrified. He describes a madman running through a marketplace, carrying a lantern in broad daylight, screaming, "I am looking for God," and the crowd laughs at him. And the madman turns to them and says, "We have killed him, you and I. We are all his murderers." This is not atheist triumphalism. This is a funeral oration. What Nietzsche understood, before almost anyone else, was that European civilization had quietly stopped actually believing in God. Not officially, not publicly, but functionally. Science, rationalism, the Enlightenment, they had eroded the foundation, and most people hadn't noticed yet. His warning was, when religious morality collapses, it doesn't leave a vacuum that reason fills neatly. It leaves a massive empty crater, and into that crater rushes nihilism, the belief that nothing means anything, that life has no value, that all striving is pointless. Nietzsche saw nihilism as the defining crisis of the modern age. Idea 2, the Übermensch. Here's where his sister Elizabeth did catastrophic damage. After Nietzsche's death, Elizabeth, whom Nietzsche had literally called a vengeful anti-Semitic goose in his letters, took control of his unpublished manuscripts. She edited them. She repackaged his ideas to align with German nationalism and, eventually, Nazi ideology. The Nazis loved the Übermensch concept. They thought it meant a master race. It meant the exact opposite. The Übermensch, the Overman, was Nietzsche's answer to nihilism. Not a racial category, not a political class, an internal achievement. The Overman is the person who, after losing the comfort of religious certainty, does not collapse into meaninglessness. Instead, they create their own values. They look at a world with no pre-given meaning and they say, "Fine, I will be the author of my own significance." The Overman is defiant, independent, self-directed, and crucially, they are in process, always becoming, never finished. Nietzsche called this self-overcoming, the perpetual act of confronting your weaknesses, your comfortable lies, your inherited limitations, and surpassing them. He wasn't describing a dictator. He was describing someone like Marcus Aurelius, like Beethoven composing his Ninth Symphony while completely deaf, like a person who takes their suffering and turns it into something useful. Idea 3, the will to power. The will to power is probably the most misunderstood phrase in all of philosophy. It does not mean the desire to dominate others. It means the fundamental drive of all living things toward growth, expansion, self-mastery. Nietzsche believed that the deepest impulse of human life wasn't survival, it was flourishing. And embedded in this idea is one of his most radical practical claims. Suffering is not the enemy. He writes that the measure of a person's spirit is how much truth they can bear, how much discomfort, how much uncertainty, how much struggle they can endure without running away into comfort and lies. He was deeply critical of what he called the slave morality of his time, the cultural tendency to frame weakness as virtue, suffering as noble, and resignation as peace. He thought Christianity, in particular, had conditioned people to glorify their own smallness and call it humility. Real strength, Nietzsche said, looks different. It uses pain as fuel. It doesn't ask, why is this happening to me? It asks, what can I become because of this? Idea 4, the practical stuff. People forget that Nietzsche gave actual life advice, and some of it is fascinating. He said, pay attention to your envy. Not because envy is good, but because envy is a compass. Whatever you're envious of is probably pointing towards something you genuinely want. Don't moralize it away, use it. He was viciously critical of alcohol, which is ironic given how many edgy Nietzsche fans spend time in bars. He called it a narcotic, a way to dull the instinct for self-transformation, a way to stay comfortable when you should be restless. He had the same criticism of religion used as escapism, not theology itself, but the psychological function of using belief as a way to stop growing. He wanted people to live with urgency, with passion, authentically. He lived in a century that was quietly undergoing a spiritual earthquake. The ground of shared meaning, the framework that had told people who they were, why they were here, and how they should live, was cracking apart. And most philosophers of his era were either defending religion desperately or replacing it with equally rigid systems: nationalism, socialism, scientific positivism. Nietzsche said, no, the answer is not a new ideology. The answer is you, the individual. Your job, your terrifying, exhilarating job, is to become someone who doesn't need a handed-down truth to function. To become the author of your own life, own purpose, with full awareness of the stakes. He was not a nihilist. He was the antidote to nihilism. And the tragedy, the almost unbearable irony, is that the man who spent his life fighting the collapse of meaning collapsed himself. In 1889, in Turin, Nietzsche saw a coachman beating a horse in the street. He ran to the horse, threw his arms around its neck, and broke down weeping. He never recovered. He spent the last 11 years of his life in silence. First manic, then simply quiet. Cared for by a mother he'd intellectually outgrown, and a sister who would betray everything he stood for. He was 44 when it happened. He never knew that his books would eventually sell millions of copies. He never knew that he would be considered one of the most influential thinkers in human history. He died without that knowledge. So, God is dead. Now you know what he meant. He meant, the old answers are gone, and most people haven't noticed yet. And when they do, when the nihilism hits, there are only two options. You either collapse under the weight of a meaningless universe, or you do the harder thing. You become someone who doesn't need the universe to supply the meaning. You make it yourself. That's the Übermensch. Not a race, not a ruler. A person who has faced the void, really faced it, and decided to build something anyway. Nietzsche himself couldn't quite do it. He was too sick, too isolated, too ahead of his time, but he left us a map. And the map is more useful now than ever. In an age of algorithmic distraction, of meaning crisis, of people scrolling past their own lives, looking for something that feels real. The question Nietzsche is still asking, from 1889, is, What are you becoming? Not what are you consuming? Not what do you believe? Not who do you follow? What are you becoming? If this video made you think differently about Nietzsche or about that question, share it with someone who needs it. And if you want to go deeper into the philosophers who actually changed how humans understand themselves, Philok is where we do that. We'll see you in the next one.